Whoa, see that guy right there? Looks like he's hit rock bottom. Well, that guy's actually me. Believe it or not. Now, I bet you're wondering how I got in this wacky situation.
And news of EA's upcoming Star Wars game, Battlefront 2, having pay-to-win microtransaction elements.
You know, when they said that all DLC is going to be free and there's no more season pass and you're going to get free maps and we're not going to split the player base, there was a catch. The catch is what you're staring at right here, the loot crate system. This loot crate system is exactly the type of system that you would find in a free-to-play game.
Companies in general are trying to sell you on the idea that microtransactions and loot boxes are fucking features.
But there's one major problem that's overshadowed the game and will continue to do so unless changes are made soon, and that's loot crates and progression.
When you're rolling around with a level 14 interceptor and it takes people 150% more time to lock on because you've already got a blue 3-point card, that's an absolute game changer. Now, there are no 4-point cards or legendaries available in the crates anymore, but you can upgrade them once you hit a certain level.
The publisher's latest debacle has been met with over 680,000 downvotes on Reddit. That's over 680,000 unique users hitting the dislike button on something posted by the EA community management team.
A part of me feels immensely fortunate that I am looking, for the most part, from the outside inwards on the Battlefront 2 controversy that's been stirring the last few weeks. I never played the reboot of Battlefront that happened a few years ago, and while Battlefront 2 looked like it was shaping up to be an interesting game, finally something that fans of the original Battlefront games could call a proper sequel, the gameplay looked pretty good. It looked interesting, and I considered perhaps buying it when it came out. Unfortunately, EA decided that they had to infect, as per usual, every single thing that they touch. The trade-off for having no season passes and not splitting up the community with map packs was that Battlefront 2 would be a pay-to-win game, with a progression system that was tied to loot boxes, which required an insanely high amount of time to grind. Or, of course, the quick swipe of a credit card. The sanctity of gaming as a meritocracy had been infringed. Battlefront 2 and EA had just managed to fuck up enough to warrant a backlash. And a substantive one at that, not just a little, not just a moan and a piss and a bitch, no, an actual backlash. 0.8 on Metacritic. 0.8. I have never seen a game that low. Never. Not once. And I would have never guessed in 1,000,001 years that it would be DICE's and EA's Battlefront 2 that would be the game to finally break that pathetic milestone. Let's have a chat, you and I. And we're going to have a chat, and it might make some of you a little bit upset, because a lot of you might feel like I'm talking to you. But I'm not talking to anyone specifically. Maybe I will. But we need to have an important discussion about video games and about the franchises we love, and about the producers and publishers who control them. The massive corporations who ultimately have their hands around the necks of the creative visions of developers, who have the final say, or who have immense control over the things that we love, honestly. People feel a connection to franchises. Star Wars is among the greatest example. But none of this is going to get better, and none of this is going to improve if things aren't done. Ultimately, markets are reactive in some form or another. This should be par for the course, an expected next step for Electronic Arts to make. This should not have really surprised anybody. What EA did with Battlefront 2 was going to happen eventually, and the reason that it was going to happen eventually is because they kept getting away with it. The reason that it had to come to this, it took Disney, it took Jimmy Pitaro, the head of consumer products and interactive media at Disney, to contact EA and express their immense concern over the public image of Battlefront and of the Star Wars name. I want you to understand how dire of a situation that you, as a fan of Star Wars, might be in. And I want you to understand that we are at the point where I am happy that Disney is getting more control over Star Wars as a result. Do you know how bad things have to get where I want Disney to be in charge of a franchise? That is the point that we have reached. And we didn't get there in a day or a week or a year. It took a long time for us to get to this point, and the reason that we got to this point is because EA was allowed to get away with it. The season passes, and the DLCs, and the microtransactions, and the shuttering of studios, they kept making money off of gamers, regardless of what they did. They kept making more and more and more money, and all the bitching in the world didn't change the fact that it became immensely profitable for Electronic Arts to fuck you and your franchises over. Because there were enough people who said, I'll buy it anyway. Because there were enough people that despite everything EA did, they still bought the products. They still pre-ordered the damn video games. There were still enough people who would open their wallets and pull out their credit cards to buy microtransactions and DLCs that had been cut from games and all that shit that you don't need to be doing. Because you do that for enough time, and you do that consistently over the years, and enough people show that they don't care, they'll buy the game no matter what. And what happens? It leads us right to this point. EA would not do this if it didn't make them money, you understand. I'm not saying they're innocent. I'm just saying that they're reacting to a very predictable model. They're a company, they're trying to make as much money as possible. EA doesn't give a shit about you as a consumer. They don't care either way about Star Wars as a franchise. They don't care about the lore. They don't care about any of that stuff. What they care about is making money. To them, Star Wars as a franchise and its fan base are a tool that they can use in order to extract your hard-earned currency, no matter what it takes. They don't hate Star Wars. They don't love Star Wars. Star Wars is just a tool for them. They treat Star Wars in the same way they treat Visceral, the guys who brought us Dead Space, for instance. An excellent series that was driven into the ground, turned into something that it wasn't supposed to be, melded and shaped into some awkward monstrosity that wasn't the game that people wanted, because EA said, you know what, you need to make this. Oh, it didn't sell, well, we're gonna shutter your studio. EA's driven by greed. They can't get enough. They'll never get enough. They'll never be satisfied. Electronic Arts has found the perfect industry where nowhere else, I can't imagine, would this kind of business model and repeated business practice keep going on and on and on. Imagine. Can you imagine what they're thinking in their boardrooms and in their suits? I can't believe they're still pre-ordering our games. I can't believe they're still buying our DLCs. I can't believe they're still buying our microtransactions. They keep saying that they hate it, but man, the cash keeps flowing in. Can you imagine what it must be like from their perspective? Gamers will let us do anything. It doesn't matter what we do. They'll buy Star Wars games. It doesn't matter what they do. They'll buy this game. They love this franchise so much, they'll let us get away with anything. All the bitching and the whining and complaining in the world does not mean anything if you still are doing it from behind a pre-order. All of the complaining, legitimate or not, does not mean a damn thing if you turn around and you buy microtransactions, or you support a pay-to-win game, or you get some mega special edition, or you support the company doing it. None of it matters. It took the chief executive of Disney to be concerned by the fan backlash of what EA did to the Star Wars franchise for anything to happen. And what happened wasn't even that big of a deal. Honestly, you shouldn't be patting EA on the back. Absolutely not. You should not be giving EA a free pass. Honestly, you should not buy Battlefront 2. And I hope that as many people as possible decide to spend their hard-earned money to other companies who don't want to fuck you in the ass. But I get it. You love Star Wars. You like stormtroopers. You like lightsabers and Darth Vader. You like space battles. You like robots. You like the Force. I get it. You like Star Wars. Guess what? I love Star Wars too. I adore it. I'm a big Star Wars fan. But quite frankly, I don't really give a shit how big of a Star Wars fan you are. I don't care. Because you could be the biggest fan in the world, but once you give EA your $60, you're no different from the most filthiest of casuals. That doesn't matter to them. $60 is $60. And the more people that try to make exceptions for themselves, and the more people that say, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, the more people who say, oh, I have to have this little pre-order bonus, this ultimately meaningless, trivial carrot on a stick to get me to throw money down on an EA game before it's even given to me, before I've seen gameplay, as I understand all of the shady and terrible things that EA has done to franchises and companies. You have to understand that you can't do this if you're the kind of person who does this. I'm trying to be as specific as possible. If you're someone who pre-orders EA games, then, well, could you not do that, please? Really, could you just fucking stop that, please? Because there's a lot of people who are bitching about the loot boxes in Battlefront 2, which is a justifiable complaint, absolutely. But quite frankly, if you pre-ordered Battlefront 2 the second you saw the trailer, and you said, you know what, I'm going to spend money on a pre-order, I'm going to give this evil fucking corporation my money, even though they haven't given me anything, knowing their track record and the kind of things that they do, then I don't give a shit about you bitching. I don't give a damn about your complaints. You're the reason that we have to complain at all. And a lot of people are going to be upset because they know that I'm talking to them. If you don't pre-order their games, if you wait for the reviews to come out, if you don't buy frivolous DLCs, if you don't support these kind of things, then good. Good on you for showing a little bit of discipline, a little bit of self-control, not acting like a rat in front of a Skinner box. Unfortunately, there are too many people who do not have your level of self-control, who do not have your level of discretion. They see Star Wars on a box, and they have to have it. And it doesn't matter how damaging it will be to the future of the franchise, how damaging it will be to the future of the industry. It doesn't matter how it will destroy the series with pay-to-win elements and loot boxes. It doesn't matter how much they'll try to feed this immensely greedy company who will do anything that they can get away with to screw you out of the experience you deserve. Doesn't matter to them. They'll buy it because they don't have self-control. Because they can't possibly fathom the idea of not buying EA's next big multiplayer shooter. And you know who you are. I'm speaking to individuals, right? I'm speaking to people who specifically do specific things. I'm not painting gamers in this massive broad brush. I'm specifically letting you know that there is a certain type of thing that is done by certain people. And it is only they to whom I am speaking. And you know who you are. I'm not making some sort of a moral judgment on you. I'm not saying you're a bad person. No. Don't take it that deep, please. I'm saying that you are playing the part that allows companies like EA to grow so bold they can do this. I'm telling you that that kind of behavior is what feeds this cycle. I'm telling you that that kind of behavior ultimately, when done by a large enough amount of people, makes companies like EA screw everyone over. Because you don't have the self-control to not purchase a video game. We live in a world where developers will mortgage their houses and set literally everything in regards to their financial success and future well-being on dreams, projects of passion. If the developers of Cuphead, for instance, the recent indie game that I'm sure you've heard of that requires no further explanation, I'm sure if their game did not sell well, their lives would have changed forever, and not for the better. Everything that they had was riding on the idea that this game that they made had to succeed. Every single purchase counted. Do you think EA is in the same position? Do you think EA will experience troubles if you don't pre-order their games or get their special editions, or you don't buy their loot boxes or purchase their microtransactions? Do you think that this company, with all of their golden coffers, all of their massive studios, with everything that they've done to games and franchises that we love, do you think that they are going to be affected that much if you decide to not buy their latest soulless masterpiece, designed to skin as much money as it can off your flesh? I play a lot of AA level games, a lot of indie games, a lot of games that small studios get together and create because they have a vision and they want to be successful by giving gamers something that they can be proud of. They don't have some massive, soulless corporation hovering over them trying to dictate everything that happens. They're not trying to screw people over. They're trying to give people a good gaming experience. They're not trying to be greedy. They're not trying to screw you over. And yet their games are not immensely popular. Let's take Vermintide, for instance. Fat Shark Games both develops and publishes that game. Vermintide has a couple thousand people who play that game every day, on average. Just a couple thousand. Not a huge amount. They announced a sequel for Vermintide 2. Because sometimes it only takes a couple thousand people consistently playing a game. A AA level game. A damn good game. One with heart and soul, right? To warrant a sequel. Sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes that's all it takes. EA screwed a lot of people over with Star Wars Battlefront, the one they made a few years ago, because it didn't have all the things we were looking for, but people bought it and they played it, and now the sequel's coming out, which is quite frankly what the first game should have been from the get-go. They loaded up with microtransactions, they loaded up with loot box progression systems that are not just aesthetic, but affect gameplay, substantively affect gameplay, that affect gameplay in legitimate pay-to-win ways. They make the progression so slow that it practically demands you pay money, because all they're trying to do is squeeze as much possible money out of the consumer as they possibly can. And EA knows exactly what they're doing. This is a huge corporation. This is a huge company. They know exactly what they're doing. They know what they're trying to get away with. They know that they have a margin of error. They know that they can make a certain amount of money. They know that there's going to be backlash, and they plan for it. Just like companies like Walmart, for instance, factor into their books the amount of things that are shoplifted, for instance. They just understand there will be a certain amount of loss. But you know what? It's all worth it. Because there will be enough people who go along with the idea. Don't defend EA. Don't you dare defend Electronic Arts. Don't be so vapid and shallow as to think that you need to clap them on the back and say, "Good job, EA." Because all of this is what it took EA. It took a call from Disney. Disney! It took a call from Disney for them to go back on everything that they put in. So if you think that now, hey, we can go ahead and buy the game now, even though temporarily there are no microtransactions, they'll be back. Don't worry, they'll absolutely be back. They absolutely will be back. The premium currency of Star Wars Battlefront 2, it was crystals is what they were called. They're called crystals. Well, they suspended temporarily the ability to buy this premium currency. They altered the numbers a little bit to make it more manageable, more possible humanly to unlock everything. They also cut rewards for finishing the campaign, by the way, in order to counteract this, because EA is just that scummy, and you shouldn't expect anything less than that from them. But I want you to understand where this is right now, and I want you to understand how these companies look at this kind of a situation. Electronic Arts recently said that the suspension, temporarily, the suspension of the premium currency crystals in their game would not have a material impact on the game's projected earnings. That's what EA told its investors. If that's the case, why have them at all? It's because they're greedy. It's because EA is immensely greedy. It's because they want to take as much of your money as humanly possible. They don't give a shit about you. They don't care about the franchise. They don't care about the meritocracy of games. Pay to win will make them money, so damn it, they're going to do it. Everything they do is a calculated risk. And if you didn't think that EA knew there would be backlash, then you're utterly naive and immensely foolish. Of course EA knew that the community and the fans of Star Wars would be livid. Absolutely incensed, irate beyond measure. Of course they knew. EA's not stupid. They put it in anyway because they wanted to see what they could get away with. Because they knew that people had been pre-ordering their shit and buying their crap and their DLC and their microtransactions and their this, that, and the other thing. EA knew that they would be able to get away with something. They're testing the waters. They're trying to see how far they can go. And it's only shocking that this is how far they had to go before the community finally put their foot down and said, no, don't do that. I wonder how long it'll last. Granted, it's good to hear this. It's good to hear that. It's good to hear that they didn't just, submit to Battlefront 2's system. Like they didn't just roll over and present themselves to be financially molested by Electronic Arts. I'm genuinely glad that gamers at least finally decided for once that they would stand up for something. Do I think it'll last? I don't know. A part of me doesn't think it will. A lot of people are actually thinking, yeah, now it's okay. We can go ahead and buy Battlefront 2 now. Sure, absolutely. See, they went back on it. They temporarily suspended their microtransaction system, so that means that I can, without any sort of qualms, without any sort of reservations, go ahead, go out there, buy Battlefront 2, because EA's in my good graces now. There are people out there who think we should be grateful. There are people out there who look at everything EA's done, just in the scope of Battlefront 2. Not the larger picture, but there's people out there who think that it's okay. EA's fine now. They went back on it, guys. Now I could buy Battlefront 2. Premium currency will be back. This is just one step in the road for EA's total domination. And you need to understand that because it's very important. You need to understand that I don't think you should buy Battlefront 2. Absolutely not. No way should you buy Battlefront 2. Please don't buy Battlefront 2. Please don't tell EA that they get rewarded for their bad behavior. If you go out and you buy Battlefront 2 because EA decided to make this weak gesture, because it took this much for them to go back on what they were going to do, what's the point? EA shouldn't have done this in the first place. EA should not have done this in the first place, and you damn well know that they shouldn't have done it. And don't be so naive that you think that they didn't know that this was going to happen. They absolutely knew. They're trying to see what they can get away with. Don't give EA your money. Don't let off the pressure. Let them feel the heat from Disney and from us. I know the game's out now. There's a lot of people, though, who still haven't bought it. There's a lot of people who are on the fence. There's a lot of people who are wondering if I should buy Battlefront 2 now that EA has made these changes. And if you're looking for opinions, then mine is a strong and stalwart no. You should not buy Battlefront 2. You should not show them that this is the tiny effort that they can make for them to get your money back. I want this game to tank. I want it to fail. And it takes a lot for me to want a product to fail because I know that a genuinely talented studio, DICE, is behind it. I want this game to bomb. I want it to crash like the Luftwaffe over London. I want it to burn and I want it to die. And if that means that we don't get a Star Wars game from EA for 5 years, then so fucking be it. So be it. If this means that we never get a Star Wars Battlefront game, fine. So be it. There will always be Star Wars games. There will always be massive multiplayer games. There will always be companies who are giving us games from franchises that we love. Unless they're EA and they shutter the companies who make them. Don't expect another Dead Space game soon, by the way. They shuttered Visceral, remember? They turned Dead Space 3 into something that people didn't want. They tried to appeal to a broad audience. They tried to get greedy. And what happened? Meh. I want EA to get hit hard. I want them to get burned by what they did. Not just a little scorch on the finger that they'll recover from in an instant. I want them to feel the shock. I want EA to suffer as a company because of what they're doing. Quite frankly, it's been a long time coming. But there's been too many people who let them get away with it. There's been too many people who pre-order games and buy microtransactions and support DLC practices that are not good. Not all DLC's bad, but as you know, a lot of it is. This is not a problem that we see with EA, and EA's not the only person who does this. You know, Activision, Ubisoft, all those guys. EA's just topical at the moment. We have to hold their feet to the fire. We can't just let them get away with it, because if you buy Battlefront 2, then congratulations. They made money off Battlefront 2. They got your money. They got away with it. Please don't buy Battlefront 2. I can't stress that enough. I'm not going to buy Battlefront 2. If someone sends me a code, I'm probably not even going to play it. So don't send me a code for Battlefront 2, because I probably won't play it, and I don't want to seem like an asshole who spurns gifts from his fans. Go buy Cuphead. Go buy Divinity Original Sin 2. Go buy Helldivers. Go buy The Evil Within 2. Go buy, God, any other game. Just don't buy Battlefront 2, please. Try to avoid buying from EA in general, but don't buy Battlefront 2. Don't let up the pressure. Hold their feet to the fire and make them accountable for what they're doing to franchises and companies. Buy from AA companies. Buy from the studios that give you smaller but more refined experiences, that don't try to screw you out of every dollar you own. Buy from companies who maybe are smaller, that aren't these huge conglomerate corporations. Buy from studios who make games out of passion. Buy them from studios who make games that have care. There are so many video games out there. You don't need to have this one. I know you might love Star Wars. I do too. I love it to death. That's why I'm not buying Battlefront. Because I'm not going to let EA do this to series and franchises that I love. And if you keep supporting them, they'll keep doing it. The premium currency will be back. They'll try to squeeze you out of every dollar that you have. They'll wait a while. They'll see how many people still buy this game for some reason. And then they'll put the premium currency back in once everyone has the game, and that'll be that. And then they'll have their system in, and it's what they wanted all along. It's what they wanted all along. When you haggle with people, you don't start out at the price you want. You start out at a price that you know will be worked down from to get what you want. EA knows exactly what they're doing. You think they started out at this point because they thought this is what they ultimately wanted? No, they never wanted this. They wanted something like it. But the watered-down version that we get now, that's what they wanted all along, because they knew that all they had to do was pretend to pull back on what was supposed to be their ultimate evil plan, and they'll get ultimately what they want. You have to understand that EA is a company, like I said, they know what they're doing. They have millions of dollars to pour into research and judging what they can get away with. This was a calculated decision to pull back what little they did. In principle, what little they did. It's a calculated and educated move that they're making because they're playing the long game. And I get it, you love Star Wars. I get it, you love Star Wars. I love Star Wars too. I love the movies, some of them. I love the games, some of them. I love the characters, some of them. But maybe you should consider that if all you love about a franchise is the memories that you have of it, then maybe you should, let the franchise go. Star Wars isn't going anywhere anyway. You've got Disney and the new movies and the new trilogy and the new spin-off this and the new thing that and the new what there. What, you think Battlefront 2 is going to tank and they're never going to make another Battlefront game again? You think they're never going to make another Star Wars shooter? Disney, for all of their faults, at least understands that they have to keep a certain image going for people to love the kinds of products that they want to push. EA doesn't share this kind of idea. EA is a lot more throwaway with its attitude towards franchises. That's why you don't have Dead Space. Because they shuttered Visceral. Because they don't care about Dead Space. They don't care about the potential of what Dead Space could be. It made its money, and now they're moving on to something else. They've already acquired Respawn Studios, who made the very excellent shooter Titanfall 2. Another shooter game that deserves your money far more than Battlefront 2 does. EA will suck the life force out of anything and then move on to something else. Disney at least tries to play the long game in a different way, where they understand that keeping a franchise like Star Wars around and keeping the fans happy, that's how you make your trillion gajillion dollars for years to come. That's why they're having all these movies like, well, they had Rogue One come out last year in addition to the regular trilogy. They already announced a new trilogy. There's going to be a Han Solo movie. At least for now, and probably far into the foreseeable future, Star Wars is a cultural Well, it's a cultural iconic force. Thematically, EA doesn't have any problem with Star Wars going to the dark side. EA always will have something else. They don't mind it dying. They don't mind it succeeding. That's obviously what they'd prefer, but it's not like they have everything riding on the idea. DICE can always pump out another Battlefield game or try some new idea. So don't feel like if you don't support Star Wars Battlefront 2, you're not a real Star Wars fan or you're not supporting the franchise. Don't you worry. Star Wars isn't going anywhere. But here we find ourselves now with the game being out for just a moment. What do you do? They've backtracked on microtransactions for now and the premium currency, the pay-to-win elements. They went back on it a little bit. In principle, though, they haven't changed. It'll be back at a later date once everybody's got their sales in, once everybody's gotten over the fact that they're angry at the game, because gamer anger comes in cycles. They get upset, they decide not to buy something, then later on it goes on sale, or maybe a day afterwards they'll buy it, or maybe they'll wait a week, or they see it's off, you know, on some bargain bin for 25% off, and yeah, they'll buy it. There's a lot of people who play video games who just can't say no. They have no consumer discipline. EA's entire business model is practically designed around this idea. Please do not feed into their strategy. A little discretion goes a long way. EA is effectively holding franchises that you love in order to extract money from you by doing extremely questionable business-related things. Perhaps, in days long gone, consumers by and large wouldn't stand for this. But there's a reason why Electronic Arts is as big as it possibly is. Not enough people have put their foot down and said no. Too many people have this graphics fetishism about them. They have too much of an interest in bland multiplayer experiences, or they love franchises too much to maybe pass on games and demand better of the developers and publishers who make them. And all of these changes begin on an individual level. The idea that, well, there's no point in me not buying this game because other people will, is ultimately a very defeatist attitude to have. If everyone had that attitude, it just wouldn't work. And forget the idea that you can't have fun in video games without a specific kind of video game, or a specific video game as an individual. Maybe, in this sense, it's better to take a page out of the playbook of Electronic Arts and play the long game. I'm very excited for the release of Vermintide 2 by Fatshark because I love the first game. But I'm not going to pre-order it. And I'm not going to decide to buy it if it isn't good, and I'm not going to support it or encourage others to support it if it isn't good either. Even if I love the Warhammer universe and the lore, and I've really enjoyed the prequel to this game, again, show discretion on a game-by-game basis. If a game isn't good, don't support it, regardless of how much you love the idea of lightsabers and spaceships. All blessed Sigma! The takeaway I think you should have from this video is that you probably shouldn't buy Battlefront 2. You need to send a message to EA. And if you do, again, you're not a bad person, I just don't think you're making a good long-term decision for the rest of us. There is absolutely zero difference between buying a game enthusiastically and buying a game grudgingly. There is no difference, and you can't justify the attitude of, well, I guess I'll buy it, as an excuse for the fact that you did buy it. EA doesn't particularly care about your attitude once they have your shekels. Remember, it took Disney's intervention directly towards EA for them to change. It wasn't even the outcry itself. Do not give EA any slack. They know exactly what they're doing. They know what the feedback will be, and they'll do it anyway. And the only thing that will change them will be for you to not support the products that have these business practices in them. Show them that you're actually not going to stand for it, that you've had enough. Maybe if you want the best possible Star Wars experience, you'll buy the games from companies who really do give you the best Star Wars experience. I don't know about you, but I play on a PC. I have far too many games for me to get worried about one game title that was ruined by terrible business decisions and pay-to-win mechanics. EA's backtrack was a token gesture, one that they had probably planned all along because they knew what the backlash would be. Do not let these tiny allowances and changes to influence your buying decision. Hit them where it counts, in the wallet. Make Battlefront 2 suffer. Force Disney's hand through general lack of financial support. Until, of course, Disney starts fucking Star Wars up too. Oh wait, they already have.